Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Katie Sassine Show, only on FYNTV. This is your home for the investigation of the indoctrination of the nation. And as part of the investigation of national indoctrination, we are doing a vaccination investigation. Yes, I know I have rhyming skills, but my rhymes are not the focus of this show today. The focus of this show today is the research of vaccines. Now, we all hear about those crazy people that don't want to vaccinate their children, right? Haven't you heard the doctors tell you about this crazy woman that went into her office one time and dared to ask her about the ingredients in a vaccine? Well, why does that make someone crazy for wanting to know the ingredients of something that they're going to inject in their blood veins with ingredients that will not go through the digestive process because they are injected straight into the bloodstream? How dare they wonder if there's anything harmful in those injectables? Well, let me tell you something, people. We need to know exactly what's in our vaccines. We need to be told the dangers of them before they're being granted, instead of being told, it'll save your life. That's all they have to say. It'll save your life. They don't know if it's going to save our lives. And in fact, it's rumored and it's researched that vaccines cause more deaths. Some of the vaccines cause more deaths and side effects than if we were not to have the vaccine at all. And that the vaccines protect against certain strains of viruses that aren't even common. Certain strains of viruses that are outdated. And there's rumors that they simply want to give us these injections or vaccines to harm us. So that's a conspiracy. But no one should ever be judged for wanting to know the ingredients of something that's going to be shot straight into their bloodstream. So this is the vaccination investigation of the Katie Sassine Show in honor of National Infant Immunization Week, which is this week, the 22nd to the 29th. So happy National Infant Immunization Week. As we know, immunization begins in infancy, hence National Infant Immunization Week. National Immunization Week, we're going to go check out that page in a moment. But first, I want to check out vaccines.gov, and it shows important reasons to vaccinate your child. Let's check it out. So this website highlights 5 important reasons to vaccinate your child. It says that immunizations can save your child's life. Number 2, vaccinations is very safe and effective. Number 3, immunization protects others you care about. 4, immunizations can save your family time and money. And lastly, immunization protects future generations. Now, on the point of vaccination is very safe and effective, well, statistically speaking, more people do not experience side effects than do. So technically it's safe because the reactions are lower than those who do not have reactions. So there's less people with side effects. There's less people with side effects than people without side effects. So technically they can say that. But there have been many reports of deadly side effects from vaccinations, fatal side effects, of life-altering side effects, paralyzation, muscle pains that last for the rest of your life, and even that can end your life. So it's just all of these facts are on vaccines.gov. You could check it out. It's an official government website. These are skewed data points. Anyway, going on. So the next page we're going to check out is National Infant Immunization Week on cdc.gov. Let's check it out. So National Infant Immunization Week highlights the importance of protecting infants from vaccine-preventable diseases and celebrates the achievements of immunization programs and their partners in promoting healthy communities. So as I've stated, there are a lot of parents that are against immunization, and they're for reasons that we will go over when we continue this discussion. There have been many cases reported of injury and paralyzation and loss of life due to immunizations through vaccinations. So there is a page, a very useful page that highlights the dangers of why vaccinations are detrimental. And it covers a wide array of issues, such as, subjection to toxicity studies, additives that are neurotoxins in these vaccines. We also discuss, it also discusses, which we're going to discuss, bacteriophages, also known as phages. It discusses how vaccines are unavoidably unsafe, and the specifics of the adverse effects. So let's get into that right now. First, I want to check out the website. So first I want to scroll down. Sam, we're going to scroll down to, with a bold print, and it's a ways down, it's a little bit ways down, where it says the adverse effects list. So right below unavoidably unsafe. So yes, right below these books right here. So we see adverse effects list. Look at this list. Anaphylactic shock, meningitis, facial palsy, nerve palsy, blood disorders, hearing loss, death. These are in alphabetical order. Nervous system disorders, paralysis, all of those I mentioned earlier, skin and tissue disorders, including eczema, pneumonia, and lower respiratory infections, all because they gave a vaccine to an already healthy person. This healthy person became unhealthy because of a vaccine. Okay, going back. Let's get out of this page. So this information that we're about to discuss is from stopmandatorywaccination.com. And you just viewed all of those adverse effects that you could get from a vaccination. Now, as a healthy individual, it's your choice if you want to risk getting those adverse side effects by getting a vaccination injected into your bloodstream. Now, we've all been vaccinated, most likely. If, I'm speaking to the, demographic that I think I'm speaking to, we've all been vaccinated from infancy onward. So we are no strangers to this here in the U.S. We are very affiliated with this. We're very familiar with this. And I remember being disappointed that my mom didn't make sure I got a vaccine when I was in high school. Come to find out, she did it on purpose. So very interesting stuff that I found out when I was older that I didn't understand when I was young. But now that I've researched into it and taken the time to do this, this is a very compelling argument, people. So, dangers of vaccines. Vaccination is a medical treatment administered. So what is a vaccine? It is a medical treatment administered to an otherwise healthy individual. This page on stopmandatorywaccination.com, I'm not going to source it any longer. You know the page, stopmandatorywaccination.com, states that vaccination is invasive. Well, that's probably because the doctors push it on us without telling us the adverse possible side effects. So it's administered to an otherwise healthy individual, meaning that once the injection takes place, the individual becomes subject to all of these unhealthy adverse side effects and becomes, well, possibly infected. And their immunity is possibly weakened, and et cetera, et cetera. We'll go over the specifics because I don't want to stumble upon the words here. So vaccines, these are some issues with vaccines, just straight away. They have not been subject to toxicity studies for many of the ingredients, such as the additive aluminum and mercury. I was reading through comments on stopmandatorywaccination.gov, and many people said that you have the option to request mercury-free injectables. So that may be something that Stop Mandatory Vaccination is not aware of, that they should be aware of. But either way, we still have the aluminum. That's a danger, indubitably. And bear in mind, aluminum and mercury are technically neurotoxins, toxic to your neurological system, to your central nervous system. So vaccines have not been studied for adverse effects in the combinations in which they are given. For example, multiple shots in a single day for infants and children. Unbelievable. Why would they not be subject to toxicity studies for all of their ingredients? Why would they not be studied for adverse effects in combinations in which they give their vaccinations to infants and children? It's like playing, as a speaker that we'll see in a few, we're going to check out one of her interviews. This speaker said that it's like playing Russian roulette with your children. And when you go over this research investigation, you realize it really is. There's no denying that it is like Russian roulette with your children. Vaccines cannot be guaranteed to provide the benefit of immunity for which they are given. So you're getting the vaccine hoping that it will do something that it may not. And they're used to prevent, quote unquote, benign childhood diseases, which actually teach the immune system how to work properly. So what they're doing is they're basically, from infancy onward, infancy and childhood, they're conditioning us to be dependent upon vaccinations. And what does that mean? Well, obviously it means we're going to have to keep getting them. We're going to have to keep being subject to their adverse side effects. What if they come out with an investigation and what if they come out with a vaccination and it's the same scenario as every other vaccination investigation? No toxicity studies, no studies of adverse side effects and combinations. And what if it becomes an epidemic like a plague and people just die? Well, I'll tell you what, the vaccine maker won't be held accountable because vaccine makers are liability free, people. They're liability free. Moving on to discuss phages. I think I'm saying that right. The phages, bacteriophages, short name phages, are viruses that infect, destroy, and eat bacteria. So in 1975, Gina Bari Colada wrote an article in the journal Science in which scientists at the FDA admit that all live virus vaccines are grossly contaminated with phages, even though it was against FDA regulations at the time. So this sketchy getting around the rules thing with vaccinations has been going on for at least 50 years, according to Gina Bari Colada in her piece in her article in the journal Science. They admitted that vaccines are grossly contaminated with phages, even though it was against FDA regulations at that time. That's terrible. So phages infect and destroy and eat bacteria. Why is this bad? Well, they're infecting, and they're destroying good bacteria that help our immunity stay up to par, only feeding the perpetual cycle that people have to become dependent on these vaccines in order to live, which means that the government is starting to have the ability to control who is healthy and who is not by who continues to get their vaccinations and who does not. So I'm smiling because it's horrific and it's surprising and it's comical, not in the happy way, but it's comical in the strange way that this is actually happening. But you know what? It's a business, people. Vaccinations are a business. So whenever you wonder why something inhumane is happening, think of how much money they could be making. And then there you'll find your answer. Because the vaccination investigation is going to investigate the huge profits of the vaccination industry and everything about it we've been discussing thus far, of course. So as we know, phages attack bacteria reproduction, infecting, destroying, and eating the bacteria, taking away the ability to reproduce, of course, outright killing them. So since 1988, over $3.4 billion in compensation has been paid by the federal government to vaccine victims. Just to give you an idea of how dangerous vaccines are, $3.4 billion since 1988 has been paid to victims of vaccines that have suffered. These victims have suffered from things like seizures, permanent brain injury, blood disorders, autism, etc., etc. And that's why on stopmandatoryvaccinations.com, that's why they call vaccinations unavoidably unsafe. They are legally defined, actually, not only by stopmandatoryvaccinations.com, but they are legally defined as unavoidably unsafe. So why was that woman who asked the doctor what ingredients were in the vaccine criticized and scrutinized and maybe even berated for wanting to protect her child, for wanting to not play Russian roulette with her child? And you want to say I'm oversensitizing the issue, go ahead and say that. But people have lost their children to this, and you don't have to. So the current CDC recommended vaccine schedule for children is extraordinarily high, and it has been exponentially increasing since the 80s. Children now have over 30 vaccines that are suggested to get by the time the child turns 6. It's extraordinarily high, especially compared to other developed countries in the world. Anyway, we've got to take a break, but we'll be right back to discussing the unavoidably unsafe issues with vaccinations.
Ace is your helpful place for paint and home goods, tools, outdoor living, and lawn equipment. But did you know Ace Hardware of Blue Ridge is a little bit more? We have hunting rifles and accessories for your next hunting trip. We have Amish furniture imported directly from Ohio. And we have Ace Custom Woodworks for all your custom wood project needs, from cabinets to artwork. Ace Hardware of Blue Ridge, we have your new house in stock.
At Days Chevrolet in Jasper, we make everything better. It all starts with a huge new Chevy selection. Then we heap on the discounts to make sure your Chevy price is the lowest you'll find anywhere. And if you like great customer service, you'll love it at Days. Bigger selection, lower prices, easy financing, and great customer service. Your better day is just ahead at Days Chevrolet in Jasper, where new Chevys cost less.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
Hi, I'm Rhonda the Mattress Lady, and this is my husband Gary, owners of Mattress Overstocked in Ellijay next to Walmart. And we want to earn your business. From the time you walk in our door to the time we deliver your new mattress to your door, you will see the difference. Our selection and prices are the best in North Georgia, and customer service is our top priority. So y'all come on in and let us help you find the right mattress at the right price. That's Mattress Overstocked in Ellijay next to Walmart.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
Spring is one of the best times of year to visit the North Georgia mountains. Not only do we celebrate fall apples in Gilmer County, we celebrate the blossoms of spring. The Georgia Apple Blossom Festival brings one exciting weekend to East Ellijay, Georgia. This free, pet-friendly event has over 50 hand-selected regional vendors offering food, art, crafts, kids' activities, and more. For more information, visit GeorgiaAppleBlossomFestival.com.
Welcome back to the Katie Sassine Show, addressing the indoctrination of the nation We are on vaccination investigation. That's what we're talking about today, because one way to indoctrinate your people is to force them to do certain things, such as, well, get certain medicines injected into their bloodstream without doing proper toxicity studies on the medicines. So that's why we're doing a vaccination investigation, in short. Now we're talking about phages. Or we talked about phages already, but okay. If you need to know what phages are, that's a phage. The top is the head of the DNA, and they attach to the surface of a bacteria, and they eat the bacteria, and they destroy it, and also attack bacterial reproduction, of course, as they kill them as well. So moving on, vaccinations are unavoidably unsafe due to the bacteriophages or phages that are in these vaccines. And how did they say it? How did they phrase it? It's phrased that all live virus vaccines are contaminated with phages. So we have the contamination of phages, and then we have the issues that have shown that they're unavoidably unsafe. And by legal definition, vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. So I don't think that everyone that gets a vaccination knows the definition of a vaccination, but if they did, they may be more inclined to reconsider. Now, the legal definition, unavoidably unsafe, we know about the phages, we know about the additives, the aluminum, the possible mercury. Now, the current CDC recommended vaccines are extremely high for children. And as you may or may not know, if you haven't been tuned in with us, this is National Infant Immunization Week. I wanted to say Vaccination Week, but I knew it was NIIW. So National Infant Immunization Week. So that's why I wanted to highlight vaccines right now, to get you to think twice before you vaccinate. Because many people say this is like playing Russian roulette with your child or your infant. Now, the current CDC recommended vaccine schedule for children now has over 30 vaccines by the time a child is 6. But that list increases to about 50 by the time a child is 12, or 60 actually, by the time they reach 18. Now, could vaccination increases be linked to our declining health? While considering that question, bear in mind the following statistics. 1 in 6 children in the U.S. has a learning disability. Over 50% of children suffer from types of chronic illness, some type. Cancer is a leading cause of death in our children. Autism rates have soared from 1 in 10,000 in 1990 to 1 in 68 today. You might be asking yourself, if you don't agree with me, well, doesn't she know about how sugar causes cancer? Or doesn't she know about the other things that can, cause these issues? Yes, I do. I really do. But when you look at the influx of vaccinations, and when these issues started to increase in society, you see a lot of parallels. You see a lot of correlation. Now, correlation does not always mean causation, but where there is smoke, there is fire, be it small or large. So, moving down, we already went over the whole list of the adverse side effects. Now, what about the adjuvant aluminum? Now, additives in vaccinations are called adjuvants. So aluminum is a popular adjuvant. Now, what is an adjuvant? An adjuvant is a substance that is added to a vaccine in order to increase the body's immune response to the vaccine. So vaccines containing adjuvants are tested for safety in clinical trials before they are licensed for use in the United States, and they are continuously monitored by the CDC and the FDA. Well, that's good news because they're subjected to clinical trials for safety. However, researchers are not sure what aluminum adjuvants actually do, but they suppose that whatever action is relevant does not include cell-mediated immunity. So cell-mediated immunity is what creates actual immunity. And that is what these adjuvants are touted to support, when in fact, the scientific community has no consensus on this supposed fact. So antibody protection alone does not create actual immunity. You need cell-mediated immunity, and that adjuvant doesn't necessarily even provide it. So why is the question? An antibody is, in case you're wondering, antibody is a protein produced by the body's immune system when it detects harmful substances called antigens. So, as we know, antibodies are, of course, necessary to our health and longevity. So, medlineplus.gov, you can check out information on antibodies. If you go to medlineplus.gov, it's a reputable source for medical information. Now, someone who's spoke out, we're going to discuss now someone that has spoke out vehemently against vaccinations, and her name is Miss Brandy Vaughn. She is the founder of the Council for Vaccine Safety and a former pharmaceutical rep for Merck Pharmaceuticals. And it's known as Merck in US and Canada, MERCK, but it's known as MSD as everywhere else because there's another company called Merck, a German company called Merck, or Dutch company. So let's check out what Brandy Vaughn, founder of this anti-vaccination or vaccination awareness group, has to say about aluminum and other vaccination issues.
And I started to do my research into vaccines and the ingredients and the flawed safety data. And what came to light was many things, but one of them was that aluminum is the main adjuvant in vaccines, in childhood vaccines. And I had experience with that, with researching that and the toxicity of aluminum, because my grandmother had breast cancer and the doctor biopsied her tissues and there were high levels of aluminum, and he told us that she needed to get off traditional deodorant and that the aluminum in there was linked to breast cancer. It was carcinogenic. So that was a big red flag for me when I realized those were in childhood vaccines, and I couldn't believe it, actually. And then I started to do more and more research, and I realized that the US gives twice as many vaccines on the childhood schedule than most developed countries. And the real health crisis is the fact that our kids are sicker than any other country in the developed world. And this is despite spending more per capita on healthcare. So we have highest rates of SIDS, asthma, food allergies, ADHD, childhood leukemia, diabetes, type 1. And this, to me, was the true health crisis. So the more I dug into this, what I realized was vaccines are not for public health. It's really about profit, pharmaceutical company profit. And the thing about vaccines is that you don't have to do the same rigorous safety studies as you do for other pharmaceutical drugs, because they're classified as a public health measure versus a pharma drug. So for vaccines, they have a totally different type of safety study. It's very short in duration. It's not double-blind, placebo-based, which is the gold standard for pharmaceutical drugs. And vaccines aren't held to the same rigorous safety studies. So if you look into them, it's very easy to manipulate the data and present that as something that's safe. But if you really look into the stuff.
So this woman knows what she's talking about. As we can see, she is the guru of vaccination investigation. And that's why InfoWars hosted her on their show, because she is the vaccination investigation guru. And she spoke about this on InfoWars a couple of years ago. And if you didn't catch some of the main points she made, if you maybe missed a couple, I noted them for us here. She discusses aluminum vaccination issues. There are twice as many vaccinations given to children in the United States that are advised to give to children in the United States, twice as many than in other developed countries. Why is this? Now, bearing that in mind, and knowing that we all eat relatively the same types of foods, even in Western Europe, now they do the GMOs. They have the same sugar content in diet. So remember how earlier we talked about the diseases and issues that could have been prompted by vaccines, and that, I said, these could be due to increased sugar input or, maybe GMO foods. But now, compared to other developed countries that also eat GMO foods and that also have these high sugar diets, the only difference really is our huge amount of vaccinations, we can see that the correlation between vaccinations and deaths and a new generation of sick children could be directly due to vaccinations. Our kids are sicker than any other developed country in the world. Our kids are dying of cancer. It's the #1 killer of our kids. I knew 2 people personally and relatively closely that died of cancer as I was growing up. Neither of my parents knew 2 kids that died of cancer when they were kids. So just to give a personal example, I know firsthand that it's more common than it used to be. And also, Vaughn says something that I like. She says, this is the true health crisis. Because obesity, it hinders people in many ways. But, you know, when we're talking about something that is being injected straight into the bloodstream, that people have to become dependent on, you know, that they have to get from the government. I mean, this is a true health crisis. I mean, I wouldn't put it over. I'm not sure if I would put it over or under other supposed crises. We know the opiate crisis has been talked about a lot. I don't know if I would put the dangers of it over or under that. Obviously, that'd have to be more research. But, you know, Vaughn says that this is the true health crisis. And she does also say that vaccines are about profit. So, as I stated earlier, she's the founder of the group called the Council for Vaccine Safety and former pharmaceutical rep for the very popular, profitable company Merck. It's known as the Merck in US and Canada and known as MSD everywhere else. And so what I did was I went to the Merck website and I tried to find the best description of them as I could. And what I saw was a picture, well, I screenshotted a picture of their vision. Their vision is to make a difference in the lives of people globally through their innovative medicines, vaccines, and animal health products. We are committed to being the premier research-intensive biopharmaceutical company and are dedicated to providing leading innovations and solutions for today and the future. So they said they want to make a difference in the lives of people globally. They didn't say improve. Very interesting choice of words and vision. Now, I don't want to seem like I'm splitting hairs, but when people write these visions for huge billion-dollar companies like this, every single word has to be carefully chosen. Now, in that description, we just read a vision. It says that their vision is to make a difference in the lives of people globally, ... It does not say improve. It does not say that it will make our lives better. It only says that it will change our lives. In what way does Merck want to change our lives? Do they want to cause another crisis, another health crisis, like Vaughn is saying, like Brandy Vaughn is saying? Because they didn't say they were going to improve our life. They said they would make it different. They also said that they are committed to being the premier research-intensive biopharmaceutical company, dedicated to providing leading innovations and solutions for today and the future. Now, what are these innovations and what are these solutions? It does not say that these innovations are for the greater good. It does not say that these innovations will create more longevity in our lives. It doesn't make any promises. It is very vague in its description and for good reason. So let's check out a page from ahrp.org. It's about a former Merck scientist that sued Merck alleging MMR vaccine efficacy fraud. Let's check it out. So on this page, we see that former Merck scientists sued Merck alleging MMR vaccine efficacy fraud. Stephen A. Crawling and Joan A. Wojciechowski, former Merck virologist, blew the whistle. They were whistleblowers on the Merck Corporation. In August 2010, the scientists alleged that the efficacy tests for the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine were failed. But nonetheless, the vaccines were still given to the public. The document was unsealed in June 2012. Wow. They were threatened with jail. They were threatened with jail were they to alert the FDA about the fraud being committed, according to Crawling and Wojciechowski. So anyway, I think we got enough of that. So we see that a few years ago, Merck got caught for not going through the procedures that it legally had to go through to ensure the safety of its vaccinations. So this is a company that I already can't trust. I can't trust them to do safety checks on their vaccinations or their pharmaceuticals. Look at what happened. So anyway, when we get back to the show tomorrow, we're going to talk about Brandy Vaughn and her interview on InfoWars and what she had to say. We're going to go over an interview that she did, I believe, for her organization that was not featured on InfoWars, another interview that probably got her on InfoWars. And we're going to talk about how vaccines are starting to become being made mandatory. People want vaccines to become mandatory. Some of the public does, some of the government does. Why is this? And some statistics of vaccinations. We're also going to hear from Robert Scott Bell, a radio host, who says that the HPV vaccine is actually a crime against kids. So we'll be right back with you tomorrow on the Katie Sassine Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Katie Sassine.